Good evening, family. How are you doing? I wanted to address Professor Black Truth's commentary on Bill Maher's use of the N word, and I wanted to share that it was a very in depth commentary as usual, very detailed, and covered many points that made you think and made you look at things in a more logical way as opposed to a illusionary way. Because the bottom line is actions speak louder than words, and I think that with his commentary, that was the bottom line of what he was communicating. At least that's what I got out of it. It's like always look at somebody's actions, no matter what they say, no matter where they come from, no matter what party or what belief systems they say they have. It's always the bottom line: actions speak louder than words. So it was very clear and poignant of his commentary. And the bottom line is, anybody that really truly respects you does not feel the need to use derogatory terms, even if the that group that the derogatory term is directed at, even if that particular group uses it themselves. If you truly respect somebody else and you truly respect them, you don't think to use it because you see it for what it is, which is a derogatory term. And to use it, there's some derogatory or disrespect. There's a lack of respect, let me put it that way, that you have for that group. There's a certain lack of respect that you have for that group that you would even think to use the term. I mean, it doesn't even come to me to ask anybody or to even use other derogatory terms towards other ethnic groups. It doesn't even enter my mind to do that. And lo and behold, have an expectation that I have the right to or should be able to, even if they're using it themselves. So it says a lot, and I think the bottom line is, no, I don't think. What I understood, the bottom line is, you always look at a person's actions. And if it might trouble you because their actions are outside of what you wish to be true or what you want to be true or what you would like to be true or have thought to be true, leave yourself open to changing your opinion. Leave yourself open to looking at things as they truly are so you aren't fooled, so you aren't brought into confusion or made to be confused down the road, because confusion leads to manipulation. And that brings me to my point in terms of commenting on the video. And there's a few things that I wanted to comment on that I found could create or cause confusion in the person listening to it. And so I just wanted to address those points and clear up the confusion that could be created. Okay. The first point that I wanted to point out is he said in his video that white women were not as effective in terms of promoting and using white supremacy over others. Okay, let's just say black people particularly. And which is why he goes harder on black women who date white men than black men who date white women. And I want to bring up the point that what that does is that doesn't allow people. I mean, he does say that white women are vipers, but that doesn't put it in the context of really the power that they have to affect the whole ability of white supremacy to exist. Because when you think about it, they raise the men that perpetuate this systematic white supremacy. They raise them. And if it could end in a generation. if the women raise them differently. It can end in a generation. And I want to bring up the point that the Mongols understood this concept because the Mongol Empire, which is one of the largest empires that has ever existed in modern history or in written history, human written history, when they went and overtook a town, or when they went to battle with a town or a village or a city, if that village resisted and fought back, usually the Mongols won. And when they would win, they would kill all the men, women, and children in that town. Now, they didn't have to do it very often because their reputation preceded them, and so many cities and towns, it just surrendered to them. And so they accepted that, honored that, and they allowed the people in that region to pretty much rule themselves autonomously. They just had to pay their taxes and obey the rules, and then the Mongols pretty much, left them alone for the most part. They allowed them to still, practice their religions and that type of thing. But as long as they pled allegiance to the Mongol Empire and, provided soldiers for the army, it was all good. So getting back to the towns that resisted and the Mongols killing the men, women, and children. Well, there was a method to the madness in addition to striking fear into any other nearby towns that were in their path that would, might get certain ideas. What the method to their strategy is they would kill the men, obviously, because the men were the soldiers and the ones fighting against him. They would kill the women because they knew that the women were the ones raising the next generation. They would raise their sons to rebel and hate the Mongols. And then the Mongols would have a problem, 20 years down the road with a new generation of people that hated them and wanted to resist them. So that's why they killed the women. And then the children they would kill because there was no one left to take care of them. And they were a vagrant army, or they were a mobile army, and they didn't really have means or the culture to take other people's children and raise them themselves. So they would kill the children. So in that, they understood the power of the woman in terms of what kind of next generation they would raise. And so I'm bringing that point up because I actually think the women have more power and more ability with the effect of white supremacy and its ability to have maintained itself generation after generation after generation. So that was another point I wanted to bring up in terms of the men having children with the women. Those women are going to bring up the children, the black men having children with the women. They're going to bring up those biracial kids as with white supremacist ideologies. So they aren't any less effective, or they aren't any less effective in promoting and institutionalizing white supremacy. So neither gender gets a pass on that one. All right. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is that he mentioned Strom Thurmond as an example of white males using black females as convenience, and until something better comes along. Now, I understand this concept. That wasn't a very strong example because, in actuality, Strom Thurmond did financially take care of his daughter. Um, and this isn't like commenting on the rightness or wrongness or appropriateness or whatever of this type of behavior, but somebody that is in the mindset of using somebody until something better comes along does not take responsibility for whatever outcome. They just walk away and that's it, and they never see him again. So a more powerful example would have been Bill Clinton, because he did have a child with a black woman, and he did pretty much do what Professor Black Truth is saying. Use somebody until something better came along. I think he just like used used the woman. Um, so and she ended up having a child with him, and he never saw the child, never visited, never did anything. I think one time Hillary, sent the family a check for $4,000, but that was about it. They didn't, that was just to leave them alone. Um, and that was about it. So that would have been a more powerful example, because also in addition to that, it would have tapped into the concept of the liberals not really being any better than the conservatives, because Bill Clinton, and it would also have tapped into his comment about what Toni Morrison had said about Bill Clinton, being the first black president. So that would have been a much more powerful example that would have rung more strongly with what his point was. So that was just another thing that I wanted to comment on. And the third thing was about his comment on how men and women view sex, and how women use their crotch to value, as a means of valuing themselves. Well, in the black society, black community, men don't have any power either. And so the only power they have to value themselves is with their dicks, personally. Um, and and you see that. You see that on social media all the time. You see black men saying, well, yeah, I have the dick power. They come, these women come for me for, my awesome penis. And so that same behavior is exhibited amongst the males. And there's a deeper component to that, and that component is based on your power. When you have no physical power, when you have no economic power, the only thing that you have left is your sexual power. And as Professor Black Truth was saying, that black women use, well, that's all black men have currently in the society, is their sexual power. And again, you can see it in their comments in social media all the time. And so I just wanted to point that out, that in this case, in this regard, black men and black women are very similar in how they value themselves in regards to white society. So I wanted to clear up that point of confusion as well. So that's pretty much what I wanted to address. And I'm just reading my notes here to make sure that I covered everything. Oh, yes. There's one other point I wanted to make as well. And that is his point about black women lining up for white men. That brings up a point of confusion too, is because black women are the least likely of any ethnic group, of all ethnic groups, to date outside of their race. Now, that in another 20 years that might change, but currently right now, that's the way it is. So if they had truly wanted to line up and be with white men, they'd have rates that would be reflective of Asian men, or excuse me, Asian women, in terms of dating out of their race. Asian women, they love the white men, and so there's a high percentage of them dating out of their race. Not so much black women. And I think a lot of that is from the history, when they didn't have sexual choice over their bodies during slavery, and a good portion of during Jim Crow as well. And so now that they do have that choice, much more so than they ever had in the past, they're saying no more often than other ethnic groups are. So I wanted to clear up that point of confusion, because after listening to that, you would have thought that black women are flocking to white men like nobody's business, and that's just simply not true, because the statistics don't bear that out. Now, maybe in 20 years, that might be true, but today it's not currently. Okay, and that is pretty much everything that I wanted to share. Oh, there was one other point I wanted to share, and that's going back to, again, white women and the how they are as effective as men in terms of promoting and executing and um, establishing white supremacy. And it's in the number, like during Jim Crow, the number of black male deaths that were at the hands of white women saying they were raped or they were assaulted or whatever. And 99% of the time that wasn't true. Yet thousands of black men were murdered and lynched because of their words, because of the mere word of a white woman. There was no trial, no nothing. Mere word of a white woman, and thousands of men were raped. A lot of them were put in jail. There was if you heard of the Scottsboro boys, okay, 13 black men put in jail for decades over the false accusations of two white women. So they're they are again just as effective, if not more so, than the males. So to put them at a lower status is only setting yourself up. It's only completely setting yourself up to be abused later down the line, abused and confused. So that is the last point I wanted to make. And please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like the video, please share. Thank you.